My name's Owen. I'm 34 now, but for a long time, I held on to this blurry image of childhood, one where everything felt a bit bigger, a bit warmer. Back then, there was one person I admired almost as much as my dad, maybe even more in some ways. My Uncle Ross, my dad's younger brother by 7 years. Ross had this confidence about him that made him feel like the star of whatever room he walked into. To a 9-year-old, he was larger than life. He wore leather jackets in summer, revved up a loud motorcycle just because, and handed me my first real watch on my 10th birthday. Not a plastic toy, but a silver Seiko, one of his own. "Champ," he said with a wink. "If you're going to keep time, keep it in style." I wore that watch every day for years, even after the strap broke and my mom tried to toss it. I kept it in my drawer, tucked beneath my socks, as if holding onto that one piece of him made the good memories real. He called me champ every time he saw me. Every holiday, every birthday. We'd play cards at the table while everyone else talked politics or work. He taught me to bluff with a straight face and told me stories about the art of negotiation, like it was a secret passed down through generations. But something shifted when I got older. It started small, missed birthdays, ignored texts. My dad would make excuses for him. "He's busy, you know how Ross is." But busy turned into absent, then distant, then downright cold. By the time I graduated college, I hadn't heard from him in 2 years. No call, no card. I still remember how excited I was when I sent out the wedding invitations. I mailed his by hand. I even wrote a personal note inside. "Wouldn't feel right getting married without my Uncle Ross there. Hope you can make it. Love, champ." I waited. I told my then fiancée to reserve a seat for him just in case. Day of the wedding, I checked my phone more times than I'd like to admit. Nothing. The ceremony ended. The reception was half over. And then, finally, a text. One line. "Busy with real family. Congrats though." No name. No explanation. Just a sharp, cold message that took the air out of my lungs. For years, I convinced myself it didn't matter. People grow apart. Family drifts. I told myself he must have had a falling out with my dad, or maybe he was going through something. I tried to be the bigger person and let it go. But it stayed with me. That Seiko stayed in my drawer, the watch that once made me feel chosen. I didn't even bother replying to that text. I didn't want to ask questions I didn't really want the answers to. Time passed. My career took off. I started as a junior project manager at a mid-sized construction firm and worked my way up. I didn't climb the ladder. I sprinted. I stayed late. I volunteered for the jobs nobody wanted. I asked questions, took notes, showed up to meetings 30 minutes early. And I listened. Really listened. By the time I was 31, I was the head of the entire regional division. And 3 months after that, I was promoted again, VP of Operations. That meant I had final say on hiring decisions, especially for positions in my branch. I never let the power get to me. I just kept my head down and did my job. Until 2 weeks ago, I was going through resumes late one evening, sipping a lukewarm coffee, when I saw the name, Ross Thorne. My heart skipped. My hand hovered over the mouse for a second too long. I opened the file. It had to be a coincidence, right? But there it was, full name, birth date, even a little headshot with that same smug, effortless smirk I remembered. Older now, grayer, thinner hair. But him. His cover letter was generic, too generic. He didn't know who he was applying to. Just listed the job title and a vague paragraph about looking for new opportunities in a stable company with upward mobility. I sat there, frozen, rereading it. Something cracked inside me. Not anger. Not yet. Just a flood of something old and unresolved. It wasn't even that he applied. It was that he clearly didn't recognize the name of the company, or worse, didn't think I'd be in any position to matter. To him, I was probably still just champ, that kid who used to hang on his every word. I looked through his employment history. The last few years were patchy, a series of short stints, gaps, a couple layoffs, a modest recommendation from some outdated contact in Ohio. Not terrible, but not impressive. He was applying for a logistics coordinator role, mid-level, modest pay, just enough to keep a roof over your head. I stared at the screen, letting the weight of the moment settle. For 10 years, I'd lived with the quiet ache of being cast aside, the silent bitterness of realizing I wasn't real family. I'd buried it beneath promotions and deadlines, beneath holidays with people who did show up. And now, like some cosmic joke, here he was, unknowingly knocking on my door. I could have sent his file to HR, could have let the system work it out, but I didn't. I moved his application into the priority folder, flagged it myself, and sent a note to my assistant. Schedule this interview. I'll take it personally. Thursday at 2 p.m. All week, I rehearsed what I might say. Should I let him talk first? See if he even recognized me? Should I act like a stranger, cold and professional, and make him earn every word? Or should I lay it all out the second he walks in? I felt like I was preparing for a performance I'd been writing for years. But underneath it all, part of me still hoped for something sincere. Maybe he'd apologize. Maybe he'd say he regretted missing the wedding. Maybe he'd call me champ again. Thursday came fast. I wore my sharpest suit, not out of vanity, but because I wanted to feel solid, untouchable. I asked my assistant to make sure the blinds were drawn and the room was quiet. At 1:58, I heard the knock. One short, one soft. I cleared my throat and said, "Come in." He opened the door slowly, like he wasn't sure he was in the right place. Our eyes met. A beat of silence. His brow furrowed. And then he squinted, confused, searching. Owen. I didn't move. I didn't smile. I just nodded once and said, "Please, have a seat." He looked like he'd seen a ghost. I gestured to the chair across from me, and he sat, awkwardly, slowly. His hands trembled slightly as he smoothed out his resume on the table. "Wow," he finally said. "Didn't expect to see you here." I leaned back in my chair, studying him. "Likewise." He laughed, trying to ease the tension. "Man, it's been what, 10 years?" "Almost to the day," I said, my voice cool. He looked at me again, eyes flickering with unease. "You've done well for yourself." "I worked for it," I said flatly. "Didn't have anyone to vouch for me." He nodded, the smile fading. "Right." There was a long pause. He glanced around the room, then back at me. "So, are you the hiring manager?" "I'm the vice president," I said. "And today, I'm the one conducting your interview." That was the moment he realized. His expression shifted. Not fear, not yet, but something close. Regret, maybe. Embarrassment. "I didn't know this was your company," he said quickly. "I swear I wouldn't have." I held up a hand. "Let's start with your resume." He blinked, caught off guard. "We'll go through it," I said, calm and measured, just like we would with any other candidate. He hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Okay." I picked up his file and flipped to the first page. My voice was steady as I asked, "Tell me, Ross, how do you handle situations where someone you once dismissed turns out to be the person sitting across the table?" He opened his mouth, but before he could say a word, I leaned forward, folded my hands, and waited. The silence stretched. His mouth opened, then closed again, like his brain couldn't quite catch up to the moment. I watched it all flicker behind his eyes, confusion giving way to recognition, then embarrassment, then that old thorn arrogance trying to claw its way back to the surface. He straightened a little in the chair and cleared his throat. I didn't mean to dismiss anyone. If I said something." "You did," I interrupted. My voice wasn't raised, but it landed heavy. "You texted me on my wedding day, remember? Said you were busy with real family." He winced like I'd slapped him. "That was years ago. I wasn't in a good place, Owen. I was dealing with a lot at the time." "You didn't even call," I said quietly. Didn't respond to the invitation. Not a word until that message. And not a word since. Until now. He leaned forward, suddenly all remorse and sincerity. I know. I messed up. Look, your father and I had our issues, and I guess I took it out on everyone. I was angry, I felt left out of a lot of things, and, I don't know, I thought you'd be fine without me." That made me laugh, sharp and joyless. "You thought I'd be fine?" "I was fine. I didn't need you. But that's not the point. You made me feel like I didn't matter. Like everything you said when I was a kid, the watch, the cards, the champ nickname, was just noise." His face crumpled for a second, but then he forced a smile. "Owen, I came here to interview for a job. I didn't know you'd be sitting on the other side of the table. I'm not trying to dredge up the past. You don't get to decide that," I said, my tone sharper now. "You didn't show up for the biggest day of my life. You didn't check in when my dad got sick. You didn't even reach out when he passed. And now you show up here like it's just another Tuesday." He blinked, clearly startled. "Wait, your dad passed away. 2 years. That's how long it had been. 2 years since the funeral. 2 years since I gave a eulogy where I nearly said Uncle Ross's name. Before stopping myself, jaw clenched. 2 years, and not a single message from him. And now he sat here, in front of me, asking like he genuinely didn't know. Or maybe he just hadn't cared enough to find out. "Yes," I said. "Pancreatic cancer. Diagnosed late. Gone in 6 months." His eyes dropped to the floor. "I didn't know. No one told me." "That's funny," I said. "Because I sent the obituary link to the same number you used to text me that wedding day." No bounce back. No response either. He didn't respond. Just stared at the corner of my desk like it held the answer to a question he didn't know how to ask. For a while, neither of us spoke. The silence was thick. I thought about ending it there, closing his file, and sending him out with a vague corporate excuse. But something in me wanted more than that. Not revenge, exactly. Just clarity. Or maybe closure. I flipped through his resume again and asked, "Why do you want this job?" He looked up, caught off guard by the question. "I'm serious," I continued. "Why here? Why now?" He hesitated, then finally said, Because I need a reset. I've had some rough years. After the divorce, the last company folded. I've been trying to get back on my feet. And honestly, this place has a good reputation. I just thought maybe I could start over. A fresh start, I said softly. That's a nice idea. He nodded. Everyone deserves one. I closed the folder slowly. That's true. Everyone does deserve one. But starting over means acknowledging what came before. Owning it, not skipping it. He leaned forward again. Owen, I'm sorry. I really am. I know I hurt you. I know I wasn't there when I should have been. I thought staying away was better than facing how much I'd already let you down. I let that sit for a moment. I looked at the man across from me. The man who once called me champ with pride, who taught me to bluff, who missed the most important moments of my adult life. And now, he was here, suit wrinkled, hands clasped nervously, hoping for mercy from the kid he once forgot. I don't need an apology, I said finally. But I do need the truth. Why didn't you come to the wedding? Really? His mouth opened, then shut again. I'm not looking for pity, I added. I just want to know. He exhaled slowly. I was jealous. I know it sounds pathetic, but seeing you do everything right, the college degree, the relationship, the success, it made me feel small. I didn't know how to show up without feeling like a failure. That caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting honesty, especially not that kind. He continued, and the truth is, I didn't think you'd notice. Or care. I noticed, I said quietly. I waited. He nodded. And I was wrong. I stood up, letting the moment breathe. He stayed seated, unsure of what to do. So what happens now? I looked down at him, the man who once seemed so tall, so unshakable, and realized I wasn't the kid anymore. I had the power now, the authority, the final word. I walked to the window, pulled open the blinds slowly, and let the afternoon sun pour in. Then I turned back toward him, my expression unreadable, and said, I'll let you know. He sat frozen in the chair, like a man trying to decide if he'd just been given a second chance or handed a verdict in slow motion. His hands were clasped tightly in his lap, knuckles pale. I stayed standing, watching the sunlight crawl across the floor. I could feel the tension in the room, thick, brittle. Neither of us moved for what felt like an entire minute, maybe longer. Finally, he cleared his throat and said, Thank you for at least considering it. I didn't expect, well, honestly, I didn't expect any of this. I didn't answer right away. I walked slowly back to my chair and sat down again, folding my hands on the desk in front of me. I studied him for a long moment, trying to figure out what was real and what was performance. Had he really changed? Was there regret in his voice? Or was he just desperate for a job? You said you were jealous, I said eventually. That seeing me doing well made you feel small. But that doesn't explain everything. That doesn't explain cutting off contact. That doesn't explain 10 years of silence. Or why you couldn't even pick up the phone when my father, your brother, was dying. His mouth twitched slightly. I was ashamed. I thought I'd burned the bridge, and by the time I wanted to reach out, it felt too late. So I convinced myself that you were probably better off without me. No drama. No expectations. I leaned back in my chair, not breaking eye contact. You made that choice for me. I know, he said. And it was the wrong one. I sat quietly, letting his words linger. There was no dramatic violin swell. No teary-eyed monologue. Just the sound of the air conditioning humming in the background and the weight of years between us. I could feel my own chest tightening, like some small part of me still clung to the hurt. The kid inside me wanted to scream, to ask him why he abandoned us. Why he left my dad to die alone. Why he'd gone from being the man I looked up to a stranger I had to interview like a temp hire. But the adult in me, the man I'd become, was quieter. Calculating. I didn't want rage. I wanted resolution. And maybe just a little control. I reached into the drawer and pulled out something I hadn't touched in over a decade, the silver Seiko. Its strap was frayed, the face slightly scratched, but it still ticked. I placed it on the desk between us without a word. His eyes widened. You remember this? He swallowed. Of course I do. I gave it to you when you turned 10. You said I was a champ, I said. That I should always know what time it is if I want to stay ahead. I remember. I leaned forward, tapping the glass with my fingertip. Funny thing is, this watch kept ticking. Through everything. Even when the strap broke. Even when you disappeared. Even when I tried to pretend you didn't matter anymore. He stared at it like it was something sacred, or maybe something cursed. You don't get to ask me for a clean slate, I said quietly. Not yet. But maybe you can earn it. He looked up at me. What do you mean? I pushed the resume back toward him and said, There's a short-term contract position in the warehouse. Not the role you applied for. Not even close. It's physical, early hours, hard work. You'll report to someone half your age, and I won't be checking in. He blinked, surprised. So, not the logistics coordinator position? No, I said flatly. That rolls off the table. But if you want a foot in the door, If you're serious about starting over, you'll take what's offered and earn your way up like the rest of us. He nodded slowly. Okay, that's fair. It's not about fair, I said. It's about whether you can handle humility. There was another long pause. Then he reached for the watch, gently picking it up and turning it in his hands. I can't believe you kept this. I don't know why I did, I admitted. Maybe I thought you'd come back for it. Or for me. He looked like he might say something, but stopped himself. Instead, he placed the watch back on the desk and stood. If I get the warehouse job, I won't let you down. I didn't smile. I didn't nod. I just said, we'll see. He walked to the door, hand on the handle. But before he left, he turned back and said, thank you. Even if this is all I ever get from you. This chance, thank you. And then he was gone. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving the office quiet again. I sat there for a long time, staring at the Seiko. It kept ticking as always. Relentless. Unchanged. But something in me had shifted. I didn't know if I'd ever fully forgive him. I didn't know if he deserved to be part of my life again. But for the first time in years, I felt something besides anger when I thought of Uncle Ross. And then my office phone rang. I picked it up, expecting a routine call, another site update, another vendor check-in. But instead, it was my assistant's voice, nervous. Hey, Owen, there's someone here. Says he's your cousin. Wants to talk to you. Urgently. My brow furrowed. Cousin? Yeah. Name's Jeremy. Says it's about Ross. Something important. I stared at the phone for a second too long, the quiet hum of the line filling my ear. Jeremy. That name hadn't crossed my mind in years. The last time I saw my cousin, I was maybe 15. He was younger than me by a couple years, Ross's son from his first marriage, the one he barely talked about after the divorce. I remembered he used to be shy, always clinging to his mom's hand at family cookouts. Back then, Ross was still in our lives, loud, animated, the center of every joke. Jeremy had seemed like a shadow next to him. I hadn't thought about him in over a decade. And now he was in my lobby? Send him in, I said slowly, setting the receiver back down. 2 minutes later, the door creaked open again. A tall, lean man stepped in, no more than 25. He had Ross's dark eyes, but everything else was quiet, reserved. He held himself like someone who wasn't used to taking up space. Owen, he asked, voice unsure. I stood. Yeah, Jeremy, right? He nodded and shut the door behind him. Thanks for seeing me. I know this is weird. You're not wrong, I said. Sit. He eased into the chair Ross had just vacated and laced his fingers together, his gaze flicking briefly to the Seiko on my desk before snapping back to mine. It's about my dad, he said, wasting no time. I didn't answer right away, just waited. He didn't tell you everything, Jeremy said. He never tells anyone everything. I raised an eyebrow. Go on. He took a breath. 3 months ago, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's. Early stage, but it's progressing faster than the doctors expected. He's been hiding it. From everyone. He's scared. I leaned back in my chair, stunned. Jeremy continued. That job he applied for, it wasn't just about starting over. It was his last shot at stability. Health insurance. Routine. Something that gave him purpose while he still had control over his body. My throat tightened, but I kept my voice even. Why didn't he just say that? Because he's Ross Thorne, Jeremy said bitterly. He'd rather crawl through glass than admit he's vulnerable. He thought if he could get the job on his own merit, maybe earn your respect back quietly, it'd be less pathetic than asking for help. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My thoughts were spiraling too fast. Images of my uncle at family parties, full of life and energy, now colliding with this new version of him. Deteriorating. Hiding it. I know he hurt you, Jeremy said gently. He hurt me too. I barely saw him after the divorce. But the man you knew when you were 10? He wasn't faking that. He really did love you. He just broke somewhere along the way. And people like him don't know how to admit when they're shattered. I looked at Jeremy, really looked at him. There wasn't a trace of manipulation in his eyes. No angle. Just the weary honesty of someone who had carried a secret too long. Why tell me this now? I asked. Because he'd never tell you himself, Jeremy said. And I couldn't sit back and watch him get crushed by his own pride. I figured you deserved to know the full story before making a decision. I nodded slowly. All right. Thanks for telling me. He stood, uncertain. I'll go then. No, I said. Wait. I picked up the phone and dialed my assistant. Hey, can you pull Ross Thorne's onboarding packet? Move him from the warehouse to internal logistics. Same pay grade. Just different responsibilities. Have it ready by end of day. There was a pause on the other end. Sure. Anything else? Yes. Add him to the company insurance policy immediately. Pre-existing condition clause or not, I'll handle the paperwork. Just get it moving. I hung up and looked back at Jeremy. He blinked. You're giving him the job? I'm giving him a chance, I said. One. But it comes with conditions. Jeremy nodded. He won't blow it. He might, I said bluntly. But I'd rather regret being decent than regret being cold. Jeremy gave a small, grateful smile. Thank you. I handed him the Seiko from the desk. Give this back to him. Tell him it still ticks. Even after everything. He took it carefully, as if it were made of glass. I will. He left without another word. A week later, Ross started the job. I didn't tell him I knew. I didn't mention Jeremy's visit. I just let him walk in with that same awkward stiffness I saw during the interview, wearing a slightly oversized company polo and holding a thermos that looked like it had been around since the 90s. He kept his head down, worked diligently, and didn't speak to me beyond a polite, "Good morning, sir." I watched from a distance. He didn't cut corners. He didn't complain. And he never once used my name to get out of anything. After 2 weeks, I called him into my office. He sat like a soldier at a hearing, spine straight, hands clasped. "You've been doing good work," I said. "Your supervisor says you're organized, dependable, and quiet." He smiled faintly. "Quiet is my specialty these days." I slid a folder across the desk. "I'm moving you to supply chain coordination. More hours. Better pay. Flexible schedule in case you need time off." He stared at the folder, then looked up. "You know, don't you?" I nodded. "Jeremy told me." He looked away, eyes glassy. "Of course he did. Kid's got more integrity than I ever earned." "I didn't promote you because of pity," I said. "I did it because I'm tired of waiting for people to fix the past. I'd rather build something from what's left." He didn't answer, just stared down at his lap. "And Ross?" He looked up. "I'm not your champ anymore," I said. "I'm a man with his own name, his own life. And you're going to respect that if you want to stay in it." He nodded slowly. "I understand." "Good. Then we're done here." He stood, gathered the folder, and walked to the door. Just before he opened it, he turned back. "I still think about that day at the park," he said softly. "When I gave you the watch. You were so excited. Jumped up and down like it was the moon itself." I didn't reply. I know I can't undo what I did. But I'm glad the watch still ticks. And then he left. Over the next few months, things changed in small, quiet ways. Ross didn't try to wedge his way into my life. He didn't show up uninvited or act like everything was fine. He showed up to work early, stayed late. Sometimes I'd see him laughing with the warehouse crew, handing out protein bars, or helping someone lift a heavy crate. One afternoon, I walked past the break room and saw him showing someone how to shuffle a deck of cards with one hand. The exact trick he'd shown me when I was 10. He never called me champ again. Never even tried. But on my birthday, I found a small, neatly wrapped box on my desk. Inside was a new Seiko. Same model. Same silver face. But this one had a new engraving on the back. Time doesn't heal everything, but it gives us a chance. RT. I kept both watches in my drawer after that. The old one and the new. Side by side. Sometimes, when the office was quiet, I'd take them out and listen to them tick. Not in perfect sync, but close enough. And maybe that was the point. Not perfect, just close enough.